What's up guys, Nate here from The Run Experience. Today we're talking about running technique, how to fix the lower half of your body. Specifically, we're gonna give you everything you need to land lightly on the ground, to land efficiently, and to be powerful in those strides as a runner. Hey guys, before we dive into this piece, this is a part 2 video. I just wanted you to know that we've done a running technique fixing your upper body. Definitely start there first, but if you've already watched it or you don't mind skipping ahead, we can go ahead and jump right into this. Now, just big picture overview as I'm running, when I'm thinking about mechanics of my lower body. As I run, my hips are pretty square. There's gonna be a little rotation, just a couple degrees, not a ton. When I'm on one foot, my hips are pretty square. They're not dropping down this way, so I'm minimizing how much movement's here. I'm minimizing how much movement is here. And if I can do those things, what that helps me do, and this leg swings back, is that I can land just underneath me as I'm passing over it. The other thing is that when I land and it's just underneath me passing over it, my foot is pretty darn straight. This will allow me to land efficiently and powerfully, and I'll get that nice energy return. It'll allow me to minimize the impact on the ground, to have a nice high cadence, to minimize injuries, and to really maximize my running speed and performance. Of course, there are a lot of areas where this can go wrong, where it doesn't necessarily work well. A lot of times what happens is my leg doesn't swing very far out behind me, so it swings way out front. And then this leads into an overstriding scenario. My foot's on the ground a lot longer. When my foot's on the ground a lot longer, it tends to roll and collapse in more. And then all of a sudden I'm open to potential issues in and around the foot and the ankle, the knee, the shin, the IT band. It doesn't really matter. The other thing that happens when I'm on the ground that longer is I have to work harder. I'm not as efficient. I don't get that natural energy return and spring off the ground. I have to deal with that. And then finally, another thing that tends to happen is that this foot doesn't only just overtride, it tends to turn out a little bit. And then I get more excessive collapse in this way, which opens me up to even more issues. So today, we're gonna talk about how to warm up to open up our hips to improve that natural leg swing so that our foot's gonna land more naturally underneath us. We are gonna work on a specific running drill to really improve and open up our stride to be nice and powerful there. And then finally, we're gonna finish with a little mobility assessment and exercise just to give us a little truth checker. How open are our hips? How much hip extension do we actually have? So to really improve our lower half and to really get our leg swing more naturally working in our favor, we want to work on some dynamic exercises just to open up our hips in general. The more we can do that, the more our running is gonna naturally start to feel pretty darn good. I'm gonna start by balancing up on this left foot, and I'm gonna start with a leg swing. I'm gonna do about 20 of them. Now, I'm gonna think first just about a little balance work. So this left foot's working, this left hip is working to keep my hips nice and stable. And I'm gonna work on a swing here. You may watch me rotate so I don't knock my sidekick over here. If you can see her, she's just out of frame. And I wanna make sure I don't hit her in the noggin as I'm swinging my leg back and forth. She always likes to come over as soon as I start doing this. And I'm gonna start to swing a little bit bigger. What I care about specifically today is how much I swing out the back, not necessarily how much I kick forward. Now, when I swing out the back, I gotta make sure I squeeze the butt to really extend that hip and open up this way. Once I have about 20 of these swings, I'm gonna transition into the next movement, which is gonna be a kick up and a swing back into a lunge. I'm gonna make sure that I drop down here. I'm just gonna shift over just a little bit so you can see. I'm gonna kick up, swing back into a lunge here, drop this knee to the ground. Now here, what I'm working on, rib cage is pulled down tight, so I'm not arching again through the low back. I'm driving this back hip forward, and this is gonna work on a little internal rotation of this hip while it's in extension. Both are very, very important. I'm gonna drop down, nice stretch here, touch, kick up again, and I'm gonna do about 10 of these. This is a nice primer. My quad, my hamstrings are starting to work, so I'm getting a little bit of heat and blood flow into the body, into these working muscles, in addition to just the movement and the range of motion as well. I've done my 10. Finally, I'm gonna drop both hands on the ground into this long lunge position, a side kick, making a little cameo, and I'm gonna work on some hip circles. Now, I can emphasize different things in this movement. Sometimes I could focus on this front leg, this hamstring, this glute, but today what I wanna really focus on is this back hip, because we're trying to improve that extension. So I'm gonna pick up that back knee off the ground, squeeze that butt, big stretch here, drop the knee down, a little rest, extend again. I could move a little bit back and forth, do some circles, drop this knee down, squeeze that butt, flex that quad, extend again. Every time I do that, I'm starting to get this big stretch here. I could extend and bring my chest up, bigger stretch this way. Once I have that on one side, I'm gonna go ahead and do that on the other side. I've really opened up this hip. This has improved my stride a little bit more naturally. It's gonna show up better when we start doing our running drill. So now we're going to be hitting our running drill, which is going to be a bounding drill specifically. Now, the thing we like to say about these types of exercises is that they're used to simplify what we're doing by removing other variables and exaggerating that thing that we're working on. So specifically, we're working on leg extension and extension of that hip, and this bounding drill is a great way to both simplify the variables and to really exaggerate that one variable we're working on. And every time I push off, I'm really thinking about pushing off through the hips, big extension out the back, and then when I land, I can land with this foot right underneath me, and I can land with this foot nice and straight. And I'm just gonna take a few passes and show you as I do this. I've already warmed up, presumably, with a little bit of running. My calves, my hamstrings, everything's ready. I wouldn't necessarily do this cold, just so you know, just in case you're curious. So I'm gonna step back here. I think my side kick's gonna help me out a little bit, and I'm gonna think about small steps at first, but as I go, I'm gonna start to get a little bit bigger. And just to show you going the other way, I guess my sidekick didn't join me. Getting a little bit bigger this way. This is a little uphill, so this works well. Starting small, bigger, 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 bigger. And what I started to do is open up my arms. When I get a bigger arm swing, I get a bigger leg swing as well. Just a nice way to really focus on that push off. I'd practice doing 5 rounds, 30 meters of this, walk or jog back in between, really thinking about driving those hips forward. Now, our third and final thing is going to be the couch stretch. Now, this is one of my favorite, not only regular mobility exercises, I think we should all, as human beings on the planet in the 21st century, do, because we spend so much time in chairs, but it's a really good truth checker, an assessment. How tight are my hips really? Because if my hips are tight, I'm going to struggle as a runner further on down the road. So it's really important to connect these things. We call it the couch stretch because normally we do it around a couch, but if I happen to be outside and I'm in front of the lovely Golden Gate Bridge and I've got one of these wooden posts, hey, that works pretty good too. So I'm gonna start with my hands on the ground, and I'm gonna take you through a few important steps here, guys, and I want you to really pay attention to these details and follow each one. The first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna kneel, and I'm gonna focus on my right hip first, this right knee all the way to the base of the wall or the couch or whatever I'm using. I'm in a little dirt, so this is soft to my knee. If you're on a hard floor, you'd want a cushion or something beneath that. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring this other knee out, and I'm just gonna think about pushing my hip forward for a little stretch this way. This is position 1. I wanna make sure that I'm opening up this hip and just starting to feel this. Next thing I want to go to is my second little level of the couch stretches. I want to pull this leg up into this long lunge. I want to make sure that my foot isn't twisting, it's not coming off, it's staying nice and straight underneath, and it's staying underneath my hip. My hip tends to shift off to the side, so I want to make sure everything is square and aligned right underneath there. Once I have that, I can think about slowly bringing myself up a little bit more upright. But this is where a lot of us are gonna start to run out of room hip-wise. I'm gonna notice that if my hips are really tight, I could come up by arching my back, but noticing that my hip hasn't moved at all. So that's not what we wanna avoid. I wanna keep my rib cage down tight. I wanna squeeze that butt, push that hip forward, and the whole system comes up together. So I'm more upright. I'm getting my heel almost to touch my butt without changing anything in the back. And this is that hip extension that we're really looking for, that we really need as a runner. So check it out. If you're stuck on one of these earlier steps, absolutely fine. Spend 2 to 3 minutes here, preferably after your run when you've already warmed up and done a lot of work. This is not a pre-run thing to do. Progress to that second step. Spend time here, this hand on the ground, belly tight if you can. Slowly start to pull yourself up to get into that third and final position and to really open up those hips. Hey guys, one more thing before we get out of here. If you like this video, let us know. Hit that thumbs up button right down below. It really helps us out more than you probably realize. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, drop a comment down below. Like seriously, like we are humans on the other side of the screen, and we will type back with our human fingers to answer your questions to help you out. So if you're brand new to the channel, definitely drop your questions. If you've been around for a little while, drop her a question. What video would you like to see that you haven't seen yet? And of course, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do, because we got new videos coming out each and every week, and we want you to be the first to see them. Speaking of, I'll see you in the next video.